Yes. No,
Yeah. You're not gonna tell me, Gary?
what?
Oh, like, I don't know,
I got one.
Oh, God.
Welcome back to Student Senate, everyone. Could someone grab the door real quick? Thank you. We'll begin, as always, with a prayer. November is Prostate and Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. And so there are 10.8 million men around the world facing prostate cancer, people around the world facing prostate cancer. Testicular cancer is also very common among young men, and men also account for 75% of suicides around the world. So today I want to hold in a special way that their health in our hearts as we pray in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Father, as Jesus cured the sick and raised Lazarus from the dead, give comfort to those in our community who are sick. We pray that your Spirit may heal their bodies and soothe their minds, leading them to find peace and hope in your grace. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Moving right along, we have roll call. The roll call question today is, what kind of potato are you? Including, if you were a potato, how would you be prepared? So hash browns,
You have to answer both. Like, I'm an Idaho potato and I would be prepared as, or is it just like I am a.
I think you can choose to just be a potato if you'd like, or you can choose how you'd like to be
Thank you. I appreciate it.
prepared. Oh gosh, now I don't have an answer. I think sweet potato casserole. I really.
I'd be like a water potato. And
Adam's next year, and I would do breakfast potatoes. Daniel Summer one.
Here, and I don't know what potatoes Chick-fil-A uses, but they're waffle fries.
Baked goods. Nolan Lion.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Baked potato, maybe.
Miranda Cologne. Colin Ray.
Here,
Christian Cologne. Patrick Galligan. Annika Barron. Here, and after doing a little research, I'm going to go with the Purple Majesty potatoes. Bella Middleman. Here, probably sweet potato fries. McLean Pro.
here, probably hash brown.
Maddie Mean. She's running late. Emma Exton. Here. I go with like cheesy potatoes, like the kinds of cornflakes on top. Isabel Karen. I'd be mashed potatoes, but specifically the mashed potatoes on the shepherd's pie. Cooper Schultz.
here, loaded potatoes.
Benjamin Earhart.
Present, I'd say big.
Abraham Vigera.
I would say loaded mashed potatoes with like cheese.
Madeline Kosaduki.
Hi, I'm here. I would say sweet potatoes in any form.
Mary Griffin,
I'm here on Zoom. I'd say just a regular potato, but prepared like a McDonald's hash brown.
Kaylee Law,
Peter Tops.
Christian Yoder,
Here, I'd say garlic mashed potatoes.
Brian Kern,
Here, I'd be like mashed sweet potatoes.
Luke Blazek, Lizzie Martin. Here, I don't really care what kind of potato, but I see. Veronica Slevin. Elizabeth Gonzalez,
Here and sweet potato, but prepared in little cubes.
Michael Ducott, Zachary Cortez,
Here, probably like sweet potato fries.
Will Kennedy, John Bailey, Ava Downey,
Here, I would be a potato.
Solid.
Mary DeVille,
Here, I'd be a roasted
James Burnett,
Here, maybe a couch potato.
Donnie DeLuca,
Here, I'd be like a sweet potato casserole with like
Paul Fuller,
Proxy, like French fries, I guess.
Jake Lowry,
Potato chip.
Timothy Gallagher,
I'll say sweet potato fries.
Maddie Tupi,
Here, cheesy potatoes.
Thomas Davis,
Potatoes over Love them, salty potatoes.
Alan Jones,
I'd be a red potato.
Madison Enos. I would be a McDonald's French fry. Elise Spaceman. I tried to skip. Minu Selvin,
purple potatoes.
Kate McLaughlin, Caroline Cameron,
Here, I'd be a waffle fry.
Mabry Webb, David Holmes, Daniel Lau,
Here, scallop potatoes.
Mo Doyle,
Here, go with, I have like 147 different options that ran through my brain as you guys were doing this. I'm gonna go with hash brown topped with feta and grilled onions. Because I'm traditional, but I like to appear as though I'm fancy.
Nice. Solid choice. Thank you all for humoring me with another fun question. Are there any changes to the minutes from last time? Once, going twice. So, hearing none, they are approved. For executive announcements this week, we're joined by a new senator from McGlynn Hall, Kaylee Law. The Senate. I've said it so many times. Please get Green Dot trained. Kaylee, this will make it information for you. You have to be trained by Green Dot by January 1st. You can go to greendot.nd.edu, I think, and look at trainings coming up to get yourself trained. And then on the agenda is like the form to fill out once you are trained. Unless there are any other questions, moving right along to Faculty Senate met yesterday. And the graduate student government brought up some concerns about access to resources that undergraduate students have, but which are sort of denied to graduate students. So especially lower access to health services, dining services, this year in particular, but even before over breaks, the limited hours, especially affect grad students who live here. And so I imagine working with them going forward on pinpointing graduate student needs, undergraduate student needs that may exist as well, and present the faculty senate on those. I unfortunately had to leave before the vote, but there was lengthy debate about a university committee on committees. That sounds like the epitome of bureaucracy, I understand. But essentially, the proposal was to create a committee to oversee the other committees, to assess their efficiency and recommend termination if it's needed. So again, it carried on for at least an hour and a half this debate. So I'll check in with them to double check, but I'm not sure if that has passed or if President Jenkins has acted on it since yesterday. If I hear any more news about it, I will definitely let you know. Any other executive announcements, Alan, or questions on faculty senate? Are there other? For our part, I actually get the time for out. You can put that at the end here. Tomorrow, there'll be a ton of events from the Department of Health and Wellbeing, basically from like 8:30 in the morning or 8 in the morning through the evening for burnout in various capacities. So we'll announce those at the end, unless you guys are up. Now.
Yes. So from on the burnout on Thursday, November 4th. It should be in your email from the student government website. But in the morning, tomorrow at 8 a.m., there's yoga at the Rock. And then at 9:30 to 5 a.m., we have a stress relief pageant at Duncan. Also from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., there's a group puzzle that's known as the Come and Help puzzle, Montreal puzzles. So we'd love to see y'all there. Then at 12 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., the McCullough Schroeder spaces will be open. And there's career journaling at the Career Center from 3 to 3:30. And then there's guided meditation at St. Liam's from 5 to 5:30. And then hot chocolate bar from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow at Library One. And all this information in your inbox.
Great. Any questions on any of that? Cool. So unless there are any other questions or announcements, we can move into general order. And so our first order for today is SS 212205, a resolution calling for divestment from fossil fuels, written by Annika, Veronica, Maddie Mean, Isabel, and Michael. So any of you can read that if you'd like. Yeah.
A resolution calling for divestment from fossil fuels. Whereas the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame DULAC commends efforts by the university to implement conservation measures, reduce energy usage and carbon emissions on campus, and eliminate the use of coal as a power source on campus in recent years. Whereas the University of Notre Dame DULAC has committed to pursuing a just transition for a sustainable future through education and the goal of reaching zero net carbon emissions by 2050 for scope 1 and 2 emissions. And the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame DULAC supports the multifaceted efforts of the university to reach this goal. Whereas the use and development of fossil fuels emits particles and greenhouse gases which are harmful to the environment and contribute to global warming. Whereas global warming is a detriment to the well-being of the human population because of effects including increasing intensity of natural disasters, increasing displacement and migration, increasing health problems, and others. Whereas the negative impacts of the fossil fuel industry disproportionately affect low-income communities and communities of racial minorities. Whereas Holy Father Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si, calls us to replace consumption with sacrifice, greed with generosity, wastefulness with a spirit of sharing, and wastefulness with a spirit of sharing in order to care for the climate as a common good, which links many of the essential conditions for human life. Whereas the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops in their socially responsible investment guidelines call Catholic individuals and institutions to pursue investment strategies based on Catholic moral principles by avoiding participation in harmful activities, using their role as a stockholder for social and ethical stewardship, and promoting the common good, which includes refusal to invest or the decision to divest from companies whose products and/or policies
are counter to the values of Catholic moral teaching or statements adopted by the Conference of Bishops. Whereas the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and their socially responsible investment guidelines states that our tradition calls us to protect the life and dignity of the human person, and it is increasingly clear that this task cannot be separated from the care and defense of all creation. We must seek a society where economic life and environmental commitment work together to protect and to enhance life on this planet. Whereas the interdicasteral working group of the Holy See on an integral ecology in journeying towards care for our common home suggests that Catholic investors can encourage positive changes in the economy when they decide not to invest in certain companies, and that these investors should promote ethical, responsible, and integral criteria for investment decision-making, taking care not to support companies that harm human or social ecology, for example, through abortion or the arms trade, or environmental ecology, for example, through the use of fossil fuels, and promote responsible investments in social and environmental sectors, for example, by evaluating progressive disinvestment from the fossil fuel sector. Whereas the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development promotes ecological economics as part of the Laudato Si action platform, acknowledging that the economy is an important system of human society and our common home, and that one important action to foster sustainability in this area is divestment from fossil fuels and any activity harmful to the people and to the planet and the people. Whereas investing in companies committed to sustainable practices and environmental stewardship can promote development of renewable and sustainable energy sources. Whereas more than 250 Catholic institutions from around the world have already committed to divestment from fossil fuels. Whereas the University of Notre Dame Dulac has not yet taken action to divest from fossil fuels as part of their commitment to care for our common home. Therefore, be it resolved by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame Dulac that the University of Notre Dame should pursue a path towards complete divestment from fossil fuel industries in accordance with the Catholic commitment to care for our common home, provide a preferential option for the poor and vulnerable, and prioritize the conflict.
Thank you very much. We are now in questioning on the resolution. Are there any questions for the author? Yes, Abraham.
Yeah, so what would the time frame of the divestment be? Or is it just like a general principle, like we at some point in the future should divest from fossil fuels?
Yeah, so this is more of a general call for Notre Dame to do something because of the nature of the way that investments work. There's not a lot we know about the specifics of like how much is invested or what the timeline of that might be. So by calling more generally for them to pursue complete divestment, that would then allow some of the officials and people like in the investment office to then develop a more specific plan, because obviously they know more about the state of Notre Dame investment.
Yes, Ben.
Kind of on that note, did you speak with anybody from the investment office when writing this resolution?
I have not, but Amy Creran from he's the head of the Department of Social Concerns, has met with people, and I believe Maddie may have as well.
Do you know, as a follow-up, do you know what the results of those discussions were?
Yeah, so basically it was confirmed verbally that Notre Dame does have some investments in the fossil fuel industry. And there is a little bit of movement thus far. They're definitely open to discussions, but there's it's definitely very far from having any concrete plan so far.
So on the 13th we're at, it talks about how Notre Dame has not taken any action to divest from fossil fuels, right? Where's the evidence for that? Are we still supporting or investing the same percentage as we were 20, 30, 40 years ago? Is it on a downward trend? Do we need to resolution at all? So where's the evidence that we haven't taken any action to date?
Yeah, again, I think the fact that it has been confirmed that we do have investments in fossil fuels shows that like this is a resolution that would be needed. Also, as part of our larger like campaign that Notre Dame has been pursuing this year in terms of a just transition towards a sustainable future, we believe that the silence that Notre Dame has had has given us in terms of their investments. They haven't really said anything about it, and we think that shows a lot about the fact that they haven't been doing that, because if they were to promote, if they were to be pursuing a divestment plan, that's definitely something we would have heard about as a student body, since we know that Notre Dame does prioritize sustainability. a lot, and because it is kind of a national campaign at this point where universities are announcing that.
So I actually pulled up the Edgar SEC Public Equities report, as well as the IRS 990T form, which shows the private equities that Notre Dame is investing in. The only actual company that I was specifically able to find was the.
Third question.
Yes, there is. Was Merit Energy Company, was actually advocating to promote environmentally conscious ways to use fossil fuels in the future. So is there any specific companies that you're addressing in this resolution, or is it just like completely remove fossil fuels from our investment portfolio, even if we are trying to pursue more environmentally friendly ways to procure these resources?
Yeah, we would call Notre Dame to completely divest from fossil fuels. There have been some fossil fuel companies that have like pledged to invest a small percentage in renewable energy and things like that, or make efforts, but the fossil fuel industry as a whole, like the basis of their business model is to collect and burn fossil fuels, and inherently that like is not a sustainable practice. So even though there has been some commitments by fossil fuel companies, we believe that divesting from the industry as a whole is the best way to truly promote sustainability, and is also like an important part of like our climate mission.
That's Councilor.
But yeah, so in the space we're at, we talked about like the scope of the impact. Is that solely to the United States, or are you talking about global impacts?
So approximately somewhere between 21 and 25% of deaths per year is attributed to fossil fuel usage worldwide. Notre Dame, being an institution with a lot of money, investing in a fossil fuel industry is it's perceiving that. So fossil fuels are a worldwide issue in that it's not that if South Bend burns fossil fuels, only South Bend people die. Air moves around. So if we're emitting particulates like P2.5, PM2.5, nitrates, carbon dioxide, all of that all affects other people, not just us. And if we're investing in companies that are worldwide companies or national companies, it's a global impact.
Yes, Abraham.
So there's been substantial research showing that nations need fossil fuels, developing nations specifically need fossil fuels in order to increase development, and removing that resource stagnates that and increases infant mortality, decreases life expectancy, increases malnutrition. Is it inherently immoral to support fossil fuels for developing nations?
That's just not really what we're trying to get out right here. We're talking about Notre Dame investing in fossil fuel industries. It's not really super a case of that. It's about where Notre Dame's investment is going.
The question is investing in fossil fuels inherently immoral?
We're not claiming that it is or it isn't.
So why should we divest?
We should divest because because number one, divestment does have an impact in terms of encouraging companies and within the business world to pursue more renewable resources. So number one, because it does have an impact there. And then also just because like whether or not investing in fossil fuels is or is not moral, it has like the fossil fuel industry has been shown to have a negative impact on the global community worldwide, and Notre Dame should have a commitment to protect that global community. And so the whole thing with developing countries, that I do believe is unrelated to what we are trying to do here, especially because of the impact that fossil fuels have on the global community.
Yes, Abraham.
What are the specific impacts to low-income Notre Dame students and low-income families in the United States in general, if we were to divest?
So essentially, as a lot of people of lower income typically live in areas with worse infrastructure, and have
in areas of less governmental action to change. So enclaves and different parts of cities that are less well funded, there is a substantial difference between the health of those people in general and the health of people that live in wealthier cities and areas. So if fossil fuel emissions and all of that, like it disproportionately affects people of lower income because they typically live in areas with worse infrastructure and less action to fix.
Yeah.
Would it be okay with you if we move to debate? I feel like a lot of these questions would be better addressed in debate. Motion to move to debate.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? And abstaining? Great, we're now in debate.
What a big group.
Tom?
I might suggest, putting aside the merits, if the intent is to address concerns of the investment, perhaps amending all statements.
I think that's good.
Okay. Do I need to get approval from all of the authors for a friendly amendment?
I mean, do any of them object?
Are there any objections to an amendment? I mean, formulate the text of the amendment. If there are any objections to that, let me know. Can you work as a suggester, Monica?
Yes.
Point of agreement.
Yeah. For debate, is there a certain like time limit for each individual speaker to speak?
There certainly can be if there's a motion. Yes, Jake.
Motion to set time limits on speaking.
How long would you like us to speak?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Okay. There's been a second and an objection. Do I need to have a debate on the motion? Do I need to debate on this motion? Okay, so we're now on debate on the motion to limit speaking time on the resolution, 2 minutes. Are there any people willing to speak on the motion? Yes.
Just for, I guess, everyone, is there anything that you believe you can't? Because this is all stuff basically coming from like the top of your head or like arguments and like your thought process, not like written things you've prepared to like present here. Is there anything that can't be presented in 2 minutes? Is there? Do you think you could maybe chunk it up?
Like, give me 5 minutes. That shows. Unless people are willing to like yield me time from their speaking time.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the point of inquiry? Is it like 2 minutes total for the entire debate, or can you like ask another question afterwards?
I don't.
Do you want to clarify that?
I don't like 2 minutes, like during like a set amount of time, like you can't. I feel like it's 2 minutes, then it goes to someone else, kind of like that.
Cool.
But it can then come back.
But can
is
we-
what you're saying.
Yeah, actually,
It's cumulative,
yeah.
it's 2 minutes.
Yes, Dan.
That sounds fine with me. I think we should stop taking away from debate.
Is there a motion to move to a vote on the motion?
Motion to move to a vote on the motion to
limit speaking.
limit speaking time.
All those in favor of moving to a vote on the motion to limit speaking time? All those opposed and abstaining? Cool. We're now in voting procedures on Lowry's motion. All those in favor of limiting speaking time to 2 minutes, raise your hand. All opposed and abstaining. Cool. Speaking time has been limited to 2 minutes. We're now back in debate on the motion. We're on the resolution. Actually.
I have a question.
So point of inquiry,
Well, it's towards that.
we're out of questioning to the
Right.
authors. If there's a specific question, we can move back into questioning. Dan,
Okay, I have a point of debate. So I've been looking up some of the just financial numbers for this issue. And as of 2017, the university had been investing into fossil fuels 4% of their entire investments, which is approximately $400 million, which is a pretty lofty sum, I'd have to say. And with all the negative consequences you guys lined out in your resolution, I say that this is definitely something we need to pursue. Besides that, though, I'm glad Thomas made you guys put the Office of Investments. The only thing I think like I disagree on with the resolution is that we don't go far enough into, as you were speaking on, like who they're investing in, what we really need to do, what is there a path to make this better? Because as of right now, we're just saying that they need to stop this. We don't really have a path to make that action.
So thank you for doing that. And I would also like to point out that one of the major impacts of divestment is like whether or not the sum of money is large or not. One of the major impacts of like a university as big as like pursuing divestment is that it then encourages other people to do the same thing as part of a larger movement across the country. That's also one of the major implications of us doing this and why I think it's so important. And then in terms of like having more of a concrete plan, I think that would definitely be something to pursue in the future. Whether that is something that is done through the student senate is definitely a difficult point because as senators, we don't have access to all the information that we would need in order to create a very concrete plan. So again, like that's something I wish we could have done, but just because of the nature of our role as students, and what the investment office can share with us, that's like why we decided to do it as more of a general call to action for those in the university who would implement those plans.
and just as a clarification, I think Hanukkah, your suggestion is in now. So the new resolve statement would read, resolved by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame Investment Office should pursue a path towards complete divestment. So I'm just like, again, checking in with the authors if there's any objections. There are none. The amendment can be made. Abraham,
Motion to go back to questioning.
is there a second? We're in debate. Are there any other points of debate? As a matter of procedure, a question can be posed to the Senate floor. For instance, what does the Senate make of yada yada yada? Or
Okay. What does
Would
the
you like
Senate make of? What does the Senate make of a complete divestment? Does that include indirect investments to fossil fuels, or is it solely direct investments to fossil fuels?
Well, part of what
Oh.
first, can I answer?
you can be recognized for debate. Yeah.
Part of what the resolution says is scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Scope 1 and scope 2. Scope 1 is direct, and scope 2 would be investing in efforts like, so there's 3 scopes. Scope 1 is direct. Scope 2 is investing in things like, it's more indirect, but it's not super. So scope 3 would be essentially not allowing people to like go on airplanes to come here. That's not very practical for us to divest in that because most people would not, unless you could walk to campus, be able to do that. But so to answer your question, I guess, even though we're not questioning, like we're focused right now on scope 1 and scope 2. Additionally, Notre Dame has a goal, it's also in the resolution of a maintenance. Carbon neutrality by 2050. I've spoken with the Department of Sustainability and the Utilities Office, And although 250 cents for a car length requests, they are already currently approved.
Other points of debate? Abraham.
So what does the Senate think about, so the fiscal filings that ended in June 2020 showed that the investment revenue was over $880 million. So if we were to completely divest from direct investments to fossil fuels, how much of that would or harm the actual investment revenue, and how would that affect the endowment and to financial aid given to our low-income students?
Okay, so it actually would not have for a couple of reasons. Number one, well, there have been studies done on other universities that have divested and pursued divestment, starting as early as I think one of the most major studies was done on Dayton University, and I believe they chose to divest in 2016 or 2017. And they found that there was no impact on their endowment. This is a peer-reviewed journal article. And then there are a couple other studies done like that. For example, there was a 2016 report from the Immoral group that found no difference in their returns when universities chose to divest. So that's been kind of a common thread throughout, is that there is no large impact. There also is a pretty common consensus among universities and then also investment firms. For example, the BlackRock investment firm has said this explicitly, and Forbes has also talked about this before, as well as a study from the Harvard Business School have found that actually fossil fuel investments are not as beneficial anyways. Like fossil fuels have actually performed worse than the market on average historically and in recent history, and with the growing movement to pursue renewable energy that's happening, fossil fuel industry is losing some of their subsidies, and the market just for fossil fuels is already decreasing. So a lot of investment firms, besides the moral imperative to divest, think that it's actually a really good economic decision as well, especially because renewable energies is where the market is heading in the future. So honestly, we didn't really want to include as much about the economics in the resolution because we think that the moral imperative should be enough for Notre Dame to do this, but it's actually not even a bad financial decision.
I guess the question for the Senate, and also point of clarification, it appears what the resolution for, it's just calling generally for divestment. And I assume that what the author's intent, I guess what I'm questioning is that the intent would be to give the investment office an appropriate amount of time to reallocate those funds to other securities and stuff like that. So hopefully the aim would be just to get out of a certain sector of the market, not pull that money out and not putting it in another place. So I think the benefit for our students that are on financial aid and for the university as a whole, if given the appropriate time, wouldn't be damaged severely.
Question for the Senate. What would be the next steps for if this is passed or not? What are the next steps?
I think for both, what we're asking questions about is divesting necessary. When we're asking the question of the university, why are we not divesting yet? I think both sets of questions kind of answer your question. In that sense, would be go back to the investment office, meet with the university chief investment officer, or at least reach out to their office and have this discussion. I think we can all accept that we as student senators, as a collective group, are not, we may not be the most qualified group to dictate what specific divestment strategy may look like. We don't have the information. And frankly, as a collective group, we don't have probably what I would argue the necessary expertise. The investment office does have that. And I do think it's important to bring some of the questions that you raised to the divestment office in terms of what would the impacts be on financial aid? What would those impacts be on university endowment? But I also do think in light of what the Catholic Church has been pursuing and what other universities such as Harvard have been doing, it's also fair to bring forward the question of divestment. I think we're doing that. We're raising this issue through this resolution, whether it's, whether there's even though there's more than just one side of the issue of divest, not divest. So in that sense, and also given that we do have another general word, another resolution on here that I think we're all might be interested in getting to. I do think it would be prudent, to answer your question. I think it's good to continue, and no matter what happens with this vote, follow up with the investment office. That is my 2 cents on that. And on that note, I'm good. Oh, never mind. Or I
Question to the Senate. The only issue I have with this is the final whereas clause. Truth of that statement. If it's factual. The investment office is pretty tight-lipped with how they handle their finances. I guess this is not a question. I would propose an amendment to strike the final whereas.
There is motion to strike and a second. All those, wait, was there a debate on? Okay, we're now in debate on the amendment, motion to amend.
The reason I make the motion is that this does get its way to the investment office. They see something that is like a false statement. That is the investment office. Especially if they haven't taken steps that we don't know about.
Yes.
Just an alternate thing that could be taken, you could say substantial action instead of just striking the whole clause, because since we have not heard anything about it and the people have kind of been that haven't heard anything about it, I think substantial blanket over that issue.
I would actually agree with fellow senators saying that it needs to be completely stricken from the resolution. We have no clue what the prior percentage of investments were. We don't know what we were investing 10, 20, 30 years ago compared to what we are now. We don't know it's in a downward trend, if it's an upward trend. We simply just don't have that information. And it could be substantial, it could not be substantial. So why include it if we don't know its validity?
Any other debate? Yes.
Would it be more beneficial to change it from kind of an accusatory, like not yet taken action, to not yet clarify like stance, or not like something along those lines, where it's like whether or not they've taken action, they have not made it information available to the student.
Like, yes, they publicized and really bragged about our like carbon neutrality by 2050 and 65% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2030. And I think that if they were to divest, there would be at least an article. And since I haven't heard anything, it does seem a little like that last whereas. However, I like your suggestion.
I was gonna say maybe a friendly amendment to whereas the University of Notre Dame, Dulac's current stance on divestment remains unknown. It's pretty neutral.
Yeah, yeah. Probably.
I accept the amendment.
Okay. So because it was. I don't know if I'm
Point of following procedure.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be prudent if you just struck down the after the whereas and then just added is other whereas, like you just kept the whereas. And then the last after.
Yeah.
And inserted other half.
Okay. The initial amendment motion was a broad question. Or
Don't necessarily have.
I accept this amendment. My amendment.
so it's a friendly amendment to your amendment. Great, great. McLean, would you care saying that again?
Oh yeah, I said whereas the University of Notre Dame's current stance on divestment remains unknown.
Does that look good to everyone as it's currently written? Okay, we're still in debate on the amendment. Are there any other points of debate on this amendment, or is there a motion to move to vote on?
I moved.
Great. Second. All those in favor of moving to vote on the amendment? All opposed and abstaining? Great. So we're now back in debate on the full resolution as amended. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Oh. Okay, now we're in voting on the amendment. Jesus. All those in favor of the amendment as it's written? All those opposed and abstaining. Now we're in debate again on the full resolution. Are there any other points of debate on the resolution as a whole, as amended? Christian.
When I first read this, I initially thought, oh wow, this is and I respect the sentiment that the resolution is bringing to the table. You know, climate change is an urgent issue, and it's something that as Catholics we should be concerned about. But I do not think that divestment is going to do a lot more things that needs to be done, especially when it comes to the timeliness and urgency of a problem like climate change. And if Notre Dame divests from fossil fuel companies, who's to say that they won't replace that divestment with other investors, or they won't get that same amount of money? Well, it sends a strong message, you know, as a Catholic institution, but I don't think that this will have necessarily an effect on the way that fossil fuel companies operate and continue today. Another point to bring up as well is that fossil fuel industries obviously are the ones that extract fossil fuels from the ground. But let's not forget that airplanes, cars, and fossil fuel is gasoline, fuel, transportation that gets us to places. And that remains, you know, some of the prominent forms of fuel that we have in the country because it's cheaper. Maybe not now, but you know, it has always been our form of fuel for the way we get around. So I think that attacking one industry isn't going to solve the problem, and also divesting, I don't think will solve the problem. They will just get more investment. It's to them, fossil fuel extraction problem. If it wasn't profitable, they wouldn't be in the industry. So economically, I think.
Bro, you're over speaking. Sorry.
I yield that.
Just as a follow-up to what I said about what Chris was saying, I feel like the resolution I feel sends a mixed message because the university has very clear standards on what its goals are for its own like emissions standards and its future plans for economic conservation and environmental conservation. But for us as the Senate, we're not the investment office. So for us to make a resolution towards administration pushing the investment office to make that, I feel like if the investment office made a resolution that they were to divest from fossil fuel investments, that would be a very significant public statement. But right now, we're just talking to the other entity of the campus administration. So, like, we don't have any influence over them other than suggestion, and we also are not very qualified to make that suggestion without knowing everything that they know. So while I do understand the sentiment entirely of divesting from fossil fuel companies, I think our position of making this resolution will likely not have a significant impact or a public impact the way I think the resolution writers are intending. So I'm not certain of like the total effectiveness they're going for and don't necessarily see the necessity for this resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, the resolution itself isn't like a resolution for the university, like forcing them to do it. It's kind of, from my understanding, just urging them to take a more serious look into it. And to the other senator's point, I don't think anyone in this room expects Notre Dame divesting to fix the entire climate emergency. But to keep it short, is it going to hurt anything for us to do this?
Carolyn?
So to Christian's point and what this might hurt, as a shareholder, Notre Dame has voting rights from holding these shares.
by divesting, they would be forfeiting these voting rights within the company to vote on board members, topical initiatives, and executives. So I think that this does stand somewhat to be counterproductive as a large institution with a large endowment, is that they would be forfeiting that right to vote on those topical initiatives. This might cleanse an image, but doesn't cleanse any part of the climate change problem to completely surrender and set the precedent for other universities to get rid of this sort of thing and actually leave the room to be a voice for sustainability. After Harvard divested from fossil fuels in this year, an activist investor picked up many of their shares and urged to ExxonMobil to push towards many more sustainable initiatives. So it's possible that while still holding the shares or even increasing a position, you can actually change the operations and vote for things within the company towards a more sustainable future. So that's where I believe that this may remain productive, and divesting would be counterproductive.
I'm sure people who haven't spoken to Caroline, you raised your hand earlier. Okay, great. Okay.
I understand what you're saying, and I've actually heard that argument before, but basically there's a couple of points related to that. Number one, in terms that the whole shareholder argument is definitely a valid thing, but it makes a lot more sense in terms of something such as the automobile industry, where kind of the goal of that industry is to produce cars. And indirectly, they use fossil fuels because of that. But as a shareholder, then you can encourage them to pursue cars that do renewable energy. But the automobile industry is still pursuing their core business model, which is creating cars. The core business model of the fossil fuel industry is to extract fossil fuels and sell them. And that practice in itself is inherently bad to the environment. So if you were to go through with this shareholder argument, Notre Dame in no way is going to be able to convince the fossil fuel industry to change their entire business model. So basically, while the shareholder argument is something that does happen in real life, it's just not feasible and has not been feasible with the fossil fuel industry in the past because the core of their business model is something that is inherently unsustainable. Also, another thing to bring up is that the Catholic Church and the UCCB in particular has specifically called for divestment and disinvestment, and that is something that Catholic institutions have always been doing, whether it's with something such as arms or abortion or things like that. If there's a moral issue that they see with the way that a business is run, the precedent is that you do not invest in that industry or that you divest from that industry. They have never supported this whole shareholder model in the past because the times where it has been affected is like not necessarily as a whole. Like there aren't a ton of instances in where it has actually been successful in terms of eliminating.
I just want to echo something that Ben said earlier, because I think he kind of got to the point. Obviously, like this is very controversial and we could debate this for hours, but we do have other stuff to cover tonight. And it does seem like a clear theme of the conversation has been that we as the Senate should like use our voices to try to get a meeting with the investing portion of the administration, whether that be like with the entire Senate or with the small group of senators, to get a little more clarification on this. So I think that I would like to propose a motion to end debate and bring the resolution to a vote for tonight.
Is there a second? Yeah, great. All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Great. So we're now in voting procedure on the resolution. All those in favor, oh wait. Don't think I can unless I'm motion. Okay. Yes.
I think the proper procedure would be the hands and that some requests by roll call for
Motion to vote by ballot.
Okay. There's been a motion to vote by ballot and a second. All those in favor of voting by private ballot. So this would be a Google form that Madison has set up. instead of the hand raising, I don't know, just to make sure that no one feels called out or anything like that, you can vote their conscience. So motion has been laid down. Second, all those in favor of voting by ballot? All opposed? Any abstentions? Cool. I think we met the voting quorum. Okay. So Madison will put the voting link in the agenda, Google form. All our friends on Zoom, you can go on the agenda. And there will be a form for you to fill out. So we'll give this like solid 3 minutes, I guess, for people to vote, and we can look over here at the results. Does everyone who needs to vote have the agenda before them and can vote? I see you getting your last vote, so just like making sure that voting members are able to vote. I'm sorry, not to call you out. Like, are there any concerns with the voting? Is the voting working? This, that, and the other. Yes,
Clarification, yes, it's voting for the passage, no, it's voting.
yes is voting to support the approval of the resolution. No is against. Abstention is abstention. Cool. We'll give it a minute or so. McLean.
That's a good point of inquiry while we're voting. Regardless of the outcome, like what steps can we take to try to secure a meeting with some of the heads of investments? Since that seems to be a general goal of the Senate at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the investment office has a website. So like people running that have their names on the website. So
I can give you a name.
great. Yeah, sure. I think also anyone who's interested in working on this can probably stay around afterwards. Annika, maybe you can stay around as much as folks. Regardless of how the resolution goes. Madison, do we have? Any last calls for votes? Anyone having technical difficulties? Cool. So you can read out the vote totals.
Okay, so we have 29 total responses, 14 yes, 10 no, 5 abstentions.
So the resolution.
So with that, because of the abstentions, it passes.
So the resolution passed. Moving on in general orders. It feels like such an anticlimactic end, a long debate. So anyway, moving on, we're in general orders. SS 212206, a resolution urging the administration of the University of Notre Dame to ensure housing for transfer students in the Gateway program. This was written by Danny, Mary Griffin, Mary DeVoe, Abraham, and Maddie Tooby. So I'm going to ask if you'd like to read out that resolution.
Sure thing.
Christian?
In the interest of time, I think it would benefit all of us if I ask you members' consent.
Okay. So here's the thing. Yeah. This is the first time the Senate is seeing the text of the resolution because it wasn't on the business last week, remember? I might ask you to withdraw that if you're completely within your right to say that, to make the motion.
I'll go back.
Are there any objections to dispensing? Danny, would you read?
Yeah. Got it. All right. The resolution urges
All right, guys. Out.
Fire drill. So I'll be back.
Mary Griffin, I just want to commend you, favorite senator, staying in the back. Okay, Fran, we get a quick count. I know. Nineteen is below. Okay, friends, so we've lost quorum, sorry. Basically what that means is that we can continue discussion, happy to, but that the discussion is not official and we can't hold votes. And that any discussion we have can be recorded in the minutes, but would have to be ratified next time the full Senate meets. So, the meeting is over. It cannot continue because we do not have enough people. But if you'd like to stay to discuss this bill, it's my understanding that we have a few Gateway students that would be affected by the housing policy change. And I'm happy to hear their testimony, record it in the minutes, and ratify it next time. But also, that's the state of where we are. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to dispense with the reading, record all that testimony, and then make it available to the rest of the Senate so that next week when we have quorum, we can read the bill, senators can take the time to go through the testimony, and then we can do a vote?
Absolutely. Is that amenable to everyone in the room? Cool. Anyone like to testify or just debate on the bill that's before us, specifically the Gateway housing policy? Yes, Dan.
Hey, I'd first like to say the resolution itself was basically written by Holy Cross students. So their testimony is presented very well in the resolution itself. So like they can say what they want to say, but it's very well laid out in the resolution.
Cool. I also want to welcome our guests. If you have.
Yeah, we can see. We'll
Yeah.
Liam Redmond and Rob over here were both Gateways 9.0. And, as Daniel said, all of our points are really in the resolution. But, as many of you are familiar, we're not guaranteed on-campus housing. But they always, told us that we would likely get it, but they recently told us we're not going to get it at all. None of us. So start looking for leases. As a sophomore in college, that's kind of, that's scary. That's a lot. So basically we wanted to, go to, whoever, I'm not sure, student affairs. We met with Res Life, and they basically gave us no explanation why, no one to look. We provided many solutions, ideas. They all turned them down. Didn't give us any, insight. So we basically came to, Daniel and the Senate and kind of, see where we could go from a student aspect and see if, we could get some answers, some solutions, who knows. But that's kind of what I made in add, Rob.
Way to get a little history on the whole situation. There's been 100% placement rate of Gateway students transferring over to Notre Dame into on-campus housing for the past 8 years. So when we got this email, it was on a Friday morning. Half of us had exams. We all saw this, and then just everything went completely crazy at Holy Cross. So we had all the 96 Gateways completely talking about it on the phone with their parents, stepping out of class, and it really just completely hit us by the truck, honestly. So yeah, we met with Res Life, and then we're trying to get a meeting with Father Olinger, and then our parents are doing a ton. They're doing everything they can to try to get their meetings, try to get all their questions answered, and really push for this. But they're not really making a ton of progress. There's been a whole task force put together, and sadly, nothing's really working. The university's not giving us a ton of options. So we're taking this matter into our own hands, and we are gonna try to get on-campus housing, because that's really all that everyone wants in Gateway. If we want to feel part of the community, that's possible. It's gonna happen.
I will add one thing. It's an issue that we're not getting housing. As you know, being in the dorm is a big part, but it's a bigger issue that they're not doing anything, to explain what's going on, why our solutions aren't being looked at. There are empty rooms, there's study rooms that can be used. We have a lot of solutions, but they're all, again, they're in the resolution. So, yeah.
And really quick, could you just say your names just for a minute?
Yeah, I'm Rob Corrado and Liam Redmond.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys again. You guys put in so much work, so it's been awesome working with you. And yeah, I've loved doing this resolution. I'm sorry that fire alarm stopped us, but yeah, no, next week we'll try to get it passed, and then we'll definitely reach out to Division of Student Affairs, Office of Enrollment. I'll get meetings going with them, and I will definitely invite you guys, have you guys be a part of the conversation, be in the room, and yeah, we definitely want to take action upon this because, like you said, they haven't made any steps towards even a temporary solution to this problem. So yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you for your flexibility tonight with the crazy fire alarm. If there are other points of discussion, feel free to raise them now. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, thanks guys for being here. Discussion, not question. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is unofficial, like
Sure,
unmoderated. So.
And yeah, thanks for having me. I definitely agree that perhaps the most egregious thing is that there's no explanation given for why. I think your first resolve statement is really good in asking for that. I would maybe suggest that to have more success with the first resolve statement, the second resolve statement be saved for later. Because if it looks like you're asking them to explain why there's lack of on-campus housing and then saying, we've already decided there should be on-campus housing, it doesn't look as genuine that we're asking them a question where we'll really consider what they have to say. So I might suggest doing the first one, and then based on the response, you can provide specific rebuttals or counter evidence to provide the second statement rather than appear to be prejudging the matter. So yeah, thanks guys for being here, and this looks great.
Dan.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with Mary and Matt over this, that we were gonna push this resolution to the floor today. And we had those double resolve statements because we want to do both of those points, but they might have to be in different resolutions or in a resolution and a letter of inquiry. So we'll go over that more next week. We might even change it for the next meeting if that works. If that's okay. Yeah, I don't know how that works. So, but yeah, no, if we can debate on that, if you guys have any input, just let me know. Yeah, I'm glad to hear all the things everyone has to say.
Danny.
Can we motion to end discussion?
There are no motions because
Yeah,
you
we're
can't
really
vote
good
right
right
now. So
You don't have a quorum,
yeah. If there are no other points of discussion, we can go over announcements or new business. But I just want to make sure we're done on gateway housing or this specific order or resolution. Sorry.
Sorry. And I'm not sure if everybody knows the difference between a letter and a resolution. A letter is really inquiring for information, and that's specifically to the Division of Student Affairs. And that would have to be orally communicated by the student body president, Alan. Whereas a resolution doesn't have to be orally communicated to a certain group or person or administrator. So I think that is also something to consider when you choose whether or not to present it as a letter or resolution.
So ending discussion there. New business, hopefully next week or the week after, we'll be joined by Dr. Christine Conway, the director of the University Counseling Center, to hear about how their office has been dealing with this year. It's my understanding that there's a lot of internal review and institutional research going on there. So we'll be happy to have her. Also, quick plug to you and your constituents. There's a new emotional regulation skills group the UCC is putting forward. I have the link to that in the agenda. Announcements, if there are those. Yes, Mary.
Welsh fans, but Alberta tomorrow at South Quad from 5 to 7. There'll be mechanical bulls, potato sack races, not all. Yard games, student drinks, general admission is $5, rank bulls $2.
A week from today, Duncan, up to the second floor, off-campus housing fair, unfortunately very relevant to campus. 11 to 1, we'll have some sort of food, but we'll have 9 local DC agents. Off-campus students talk about
Fisher Car Smash was postponed, so it's now this Friday, 3 to 6 o'clock. in front of Stonehenge. We have a car, and now we have the SOA approval, so there will be a car smash Friday.
Pete, that's you.
Yeah, Acoustic Cafe is back. I know you all missed it. It's inside Haggerty this Thursday, 9 to 11. And then there's a hypnotist on Thursday at 7 p.m. in Cary Auditorium in Tess. He's very cool. So if you want to get hypnotized. Sorry, just
This Friday, 7 to 8:30 in the LaFont Ballroom is Johnson Family Hall's first ever signature event ever. Johnson Family Feud, and there will be Chick-fil-A and it's free. So.
Yes,
And the signature event train going. Key of Chariot Week is next week, so our chariot races will be not this weekend, but the following weekend. Every dorm, Holy Cross, St. Mary's is welcome to come build a chariot and race in those races on that Saturday. Or I'll announce it next week.
Yeah. Feel free to put that in the Slack too.
Yes.
Everyone, feel free to put your events in the Slack. Yes, David.
Judicial Council will be holding a showcase for the upcoming spring elections this semester, so people can hear about what the various elected positions do and decide what they want to run for ahead of time. What I'm looking for is a senior senator, either a hall senator or an off-campus senator. That applies to you. If you're interested in coming, we'd like you to be there simply to answer questions about what you do here. No other work needed. So if you're interested, please come find me, and I'll ask again next week.
When you say senior senator, you mean a senator who is currently class of 2021, like senior graduating, or a senior senator like they've been doing this for multiple years?
Good clarification. Class of 2021, so that you can't run again and we don't look like we're endorsing you.
Thank you.
We're all gone.
Thank you, 2022, sorry, 2022.
Even better for 2021. Dan.
The final four of the 64-man ping pong tournament is on Thursday night. Opening ceremonies are at 7:30, and the games will be played to 21, 3 games apiece. We have some state champions who are going to be playing in the final four. So if you want to see some like epic ping pong, come on over. It's at 7:30 on Thursday night.
All right. Other announcements? Okay. Because we can't motion to adjourn. Have a good night.
Thank you, Maddie.